Hey everybody, welcome to Sit Down. I'm DJ Sixsmith, son of God in the house, Andre Ward. Andre, what's going on?
How are you, brother?
Thank you very much for coming in.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Contender is coming out on Friday. Very excited for that. But before we get into that, let's talk about your career. You're a Bay Area guy through and through, still hanging out there. Tell me about growing up in the Bay Area and what sticks out to you the most about your experience.
I mean, I think the Bay Area is probably a bigger market than what it's advertised. Especially now, there's a lot of transplants, a lot of people coming. And it's just I've always and I've traveled many places, but it's just something about the Bay Area that's blue collar, close knit. Whether you're an athlete or whether you work in Silicon Valley or whether you're just an average person that's working a 9 to 5, like people are close knit. We're not quite LA in terms of the population or the traffic. We just have our own little niche, man. And I've always kind of felt like it was it was like this little spot that people have heard about, but not everybody's visited, and I don't know. I wouldn't want to be from anywhere else.
That's awesome. It's a very diverse place too, like you said. And when you think about your career, you're a young kid, you put on the gloves for the first time, you get in the ring. What was that experience like for you?
I mean, my first love was baseball. I was a pitcher and a shortstop. I didn't know anything about boxing, and then my dad kind of casually started telling me about some of his war stories. He fought as an amateur. He was 15-0 as a heavyweight, and I was like, wait, you fought? And he was like, yeah, he started telling me more, and I'm like, wow. And I was like, all right, no more baseball. I want to box. He was like, listen, wait a second. So he's giving me, the whole spiel, if we do this, we're going to stick to it. And of course, I'm 9 years old, so I'm like, yes, I'm ready. Let's do it. And man, I started, and it was a little rough at first, and it just kind of took off. And I was always a tough kid, always ultra competitive. And, once I kind of understood the different nuances and actually how to throw punches and get out of the way of punches, man, I took off, and I won my first national a year later.
That's awesome. So you obviously had the personality traits. Your dad had the history. But when was that moment that you realized, wait, I can do this and I can take it all the way?
Probably after my first national. It was a Silver Gloves national in 1996. And, it's a process to get there. You have locals, you have states, you have regionals, and then you go to Lenexa, Kansas, and you're facing, again, everybody, the best fighters from your weight class in the nation. And it's a lot for a young kid. And I won. Got this big, beautiful blue belt, first belt ever. And I got these beautiful silver gloves. And I was like, I think I can get used to this.
That's awesome. So what was the toughest part of those initial days? Because you're a tough kid. You could throw a punch, but taking that and then building upon it, it's not an easy thing to do. So how did you get through those tough times initially?
How? I mean, probably just encouragement, from, my godfather, Virgil, who, has been my lifelong trainer. And my dad, he wasn't so encouraging, at first. He was like, he doesn't have it. And Virgil, he's more kind of cerebral. He's like, wait a second, Duke. My dad's nickname was Duke. He said, man, give him a shot, give him a chance. So I think it was just encouragement and just having the thing about my dad and the thing about Virgil that I don't necessarily see today is they were not just trainers, they were great teachers. And they had great teachers. A lot of times today, a lot of the older teachers are kind of, they're getting older, they're getting sick, and they're not able to be at the gym like they used to. Those guys taught me the fundamentals of the game. How to use my jab, the importance of, hitting and not getting hit, the importance of footwork. So it was fun to learn. It wasn't fun to get hit. And that's where the encouragement part came in, where they just told me, man, look, stick to it. You're going to be good. And Verge, he had trained a lot of guys before, so he knew he had something. He didn't know, how good I could become, but he saw something early.
And they cared about you as a boy and as a man, which is something that's different from maybe the guys today that are training, because we talk about boxing as a whole. It's like, well, boxing on the way down, but boxing is still here. It's a very lively sport, but maybe a bigger issue is that there aren't the same teachers as there once were.
I think that's part of it. And I think, as far as top sports today, national sports, like boxing is the redheaded stepchild.
Right.
We're the black sheep for, reasons I understand and some reasons I don't. But I've said this throughout the course of, this media tour, I don't think boxing is going anywhere.
No.
We have good times, we have bad times, we have highs, we have lows, just like any entity or person. Boxing is here to stay. And it's on the rise. We just talked about ESPN Plus and just the different platforms that these different networks are adopting. And they're forward thinking, man. So I think the future's bright.
No doubt about it. And there's still great fighters. There are amazing fights. And I just think the tick in the MMA rise obviously played a factor into it. But at the same time, if you actually look at boxing and you think about the guys fighting today, there are a lot of great guys out there. So who are some of your favorites from today?
From today, support a lot of the younger guys, you know, like Errol Spence, you know, Terrence Crawford, a fighter that I co-managed, Shakur Stevenson, female fighter Claressa Shields. Like I like the people the younger people, you know, and I support the sport as a whole, but like I'm really fond of them, you know, because I understand what they're going through. I've kind of been there, done that. I'm the old guy now.
Which is a weird thing for you, right?
I'm the old guy in the room. So I got the, you know, the finger wag, like I've been where you are type of stuff. So I can relate. And I just try to be an asset to them any way I can. A phone call, encouragement, showing up to their events, fights, training sessions, you name it.
All right, let's talk about somewhere that you were, the 2004 Olympics.
Yeah.
You won gold, obviously a really special moment for you.
Of course.
What was that like to represent your country and to win at the highest level?
Unbelievable, surreal. I've done a lot of things as a pro. Nothing will ever surpass that. And I always had this in mind as I was progressing as a pro, that no matter what happens in my career, if I blow it and I'm a bust, like I'm still in the history books with Ali. Man,
I still got the medal.
I'm straight. So that was always a comforting feeling, you know. But it wasn't about money at that time, and it wasn't about the business and the politics. It was, you know, it was just purely the love for the sport and my country. And that was like my first big goal that my father and my trainer Verge set. It was like, okay, you know, of course nationals and different things like that, but man, we want to win a gold medal in 2004. And I planned this out like 8 years before. So to actually do that and to be on that medal podium was just unbelievable.
And you took that medal and turned it into a phenomenal career, and a career where you never lost.
Yeah.
And when you think about that, it's such an incredible thing to do. But how did you go fight in, fight out, and maintain that perfect record when every fighter was gunning for you and you had all the pressure in the world? How did you deal with that?
I don't know. I don't fully know. I mean, first and foremost, God has blessed me with a skill set. He's blessed me with a tremendous work ethic and just, you know, this mental focus. You know, and I feel like you got to kind of check all those boxes if you're going to have success. And I just hate to lose. Like, I hate to lose.
Hate to lose more than you like to win.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing, really.
Absolutely, yeah. With all the top athletes, you can really see that. Yeah,
for sure. And, like, but that would drive me to do above and beyond. And we just stayed consistent, man. You know, and I looked up, and we never really got caught up. Like, I was a 20-year win streak. My last loss was, like, 13 or 14 years old. But we never got caught up in that. Like, I was always raised from my dad and Verge, like, look, man, we won that national, enjoy it for a couple of days, move on. And that, like, carried over into my pro career. So now that I'm about a year removed from retirement, I'm like, dude, you haven't lost in 20 years. Like, it blows my mind. I can't believe it.
What was the hardest part about walking away?
Just the love of it, you know. Like, that was my baby, you know. Something I've done for the majority of my life. And it wasn't like, you know, I eased my way out where I said, hey, everybody, this is my last fight or my last year in the sport. Like, it just happened.
You ripped that Band-Aid real quick.
I ripped it off.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you do that, sometimes there's going to be some bleeding. And it's a process. But, you know, I care enough about, obviously, my family and you know, my own health, but also the sport. I care enough about the sport to not just selfishly be concerned about, you know, my money or, you know, winning more titles, but I care about the guys and the girls that I just mentioned. They're watching, and we don't have a lot of, you know, good endings in the sport.
Right.
And I hope that I can be one of many that they can point to and say, look, man, let's do it the way he did it. Let's get in, let's get out, and let's have our faculties and whatever money we made, and let's move on to the next phase of life. Because boxing was a big part of my life, but it wasn't my life. And I think that's hard for people to kind of process and understand.
No, I totally understand it. And when you look at your life now, there's so much else going on that isn't even boxing related.
Of course.
You know, the work that you do in the community and stuff like that. Whereas there are other athletes that really struggle with that transition.
Yes.
You were prepared. How did you prepare yourself for life after sports?
Again, I was always, you know, first and foremost, like just kind of an old soul. Like, I cared about things that, you know, an 11, 12, 13-year-old should not care about.
Like what?
Like why does Roy Jones promote himself? You know, why isn't he with the other promoters? Or, man, you know, hey, this guy retired, like, but he's not well off. Like, I wanna retire, you know, on top, and I wanna retire with everything intact. And I'm saying this at, like, you know, 13 years old. That's not normal. But for whatever reason, I noticed things about the sport beyond the actual fighting. And then I started to study it. I know that Jim Brown retired on the set of Dirty Dozens. And walked away, and, you know, his owner threatened him and this and that. And he was like, listen, man, he was in his fatigues. in between takes, and he retired right there because he didn't like the treatment from the owner. And like that stuck with me for some reason. I looked at Lennox Lewis when he retired and never came back. I said, man, there was something different about him. Joe Calzaghe, Joe Louis. Like, there's a handful of guys that we can mention that did it the right way and that left on top, but there's so many guys that we can point to that didn't.
Sure.
I wanted to be one of the ones that did.
Yeah, I mean, you think about a guy like Evander Holyfield, fighting until he's in his 50s.
Great legacy.
Yeah.
I have great admiration for him, but he went too far.
And you have your health, and you have your family, and you still have your toe in boxing with the Contender. So let's talk about that. Seems like a really interesting series for you to be involved with because you were one of those guys.
Yes.
And the people on the show really have some fascinating stories. So first of all, how did you get involved with the project?
I mean, Mark Burnett gave me an opportunity. I was on a short list of individuals that, they were vetting to see, who would be the best fit. I, obviously got the job and, I jumped head first in, and I got great mentorship from him. I talked to Sly, I talked to Sugar Ray Leonard, and, I understood from the very beginning that, the magnitude of shoes that I was trying to fill coming behind those guys. And I didn't want to, try to compete in any kind of way. I just wanted to do the best that I could. And all those guys gave me the same advice universally, which was, listen, you have the job for a reason. They didn't just call you by happenstance. Go out there and do what you need to do. You're ready for this. And that was all the encouragement that I needed. I'm excited about this season because, some of the feedback we got from the fans was that we don't want edited fights. We want the whole fights. Well, we gave them the whole fight. Season 5, you get the full 5 rounds, unedited, good, bad, indifferent. Whatever happens in that fight, you're going to get that. But the sticking point for me was the mentorship. Rolling up your sleeves, taking time to get to know guys, asking them the tough questions about where'd you come from? Man, my mom this and my dad that. Really, man, how did that shape you into being a fighter? Man, I feel like, I'm trying to fight to get my family in a better position. I mean, I look at a kid like Michael Moore from Cleveland, and he hasn't made it yet, and all he kept telling us was, I got to get my son out of Cleveland. I got to get my family out of Cleveland. And I've never felt the need to leave my hometown. But I've heard that from people before, and to hear him articulate that and to be, kind of a driving force for him was like, it was just eye-opening for me. But those are the kind of stories that you're going to hear from these combatants. Or you see a Shane Mosley Jr., who didn't grow up in the slums.
Right.
He didn't grow up in the ghetto. He's the son of a legend, Shane Mosley Sr. But his struggle has been coming out of the shadows and trying to fight out of the shadows of his father's legacy. That's something that's commendable. You have Eric Walker from Baton Rouge,
Amazing
Louisiana.
Story. Yeah.
The babyface assassin. And I sparred with him, worked with him, we trained together. But I started to understand his story and the early struggles that he had. He did over a decade in a Louisiana state prison. But yet he's literally on this show trying to rewrite his story. And people get the opportunity to view it and watch it on Epics.
And I think what's the most fascinating thing is that every fighter has a different motivating factor. But yet you get in the ring, put on the gloves, and you can find something that fulfills you. Unlike other sports where, you could pitch and have 10 strikeouts, or, you could hit 10 three-pointers, but you physically get to beat down somebody. That's a different thing.
You just beat that guy.
Yeah. You pummeled him to the ground.
You did.
And nobody else, And I think that's a really interesting thing about boxing. And for the people that say it's not happening right now, watch a fight. Watch the Contender, and you'll clearly see what's going on.
For sure. And again, the fighting part, the training part, the things that they have to physically go through to get to the actual fight and try to be successful is very important for me. I know hardcore fans are going to appreciate that. But I'm really excited about, the average person, the lay person, that may not even watch boxing or care about boxing. They get to see the struggles, the phone calls that these guys get from home that, things that they have to process, people dying, arguments with their, whomever, just things that they have, real life. The struggles of being in a house with 16 guys. It's a lot of testosterone in the house, man. And there were some peaceful nights, and then there were times where things kind of, things happen, and it's not scripted. Wow, these fighters, they're human like me. They have an extraordinary job. They do something that most people don't do, but yet they go through the same issues and struggles that we have. I appreciate them getting in the ring just to entertain us.
So what was the most surprising part of the whole experience for you?
I mean, there's a lot. To me, that's kind of like a loaded question because there were so many surprises, like pleasant surprises.
Right.
But I would probably say one thing I can take, or one big surprise, was that, you know, my preconceptions of who was who individually from a character standpoint and who was who from a fighting standpoint. So in other words, who was going to beat who and who was going to ultimately be the last two people standing was all wrong. It was all wrong.
Isn't it funny how that goes?
It was all wrong. Like, I was like, okay, this guy right here, I like his record, and I've kind of done my research on him. He'll probably be in the semifinals or the finals. No. This guy, I don't know, man. He doesn't seem to really want to be here. Like, you know, man, why was he even on the show? Man, he kind of seems like he's indifferent. That guy, you know, so it was that kind of stuff that really just humbled me and just caused me to kind of sit back and say, let me let this play out.
Let the guys fight, right?
Yeah, we got to let it play out. But that's the beautiful thing. Epics was a fly on the wall for the disputes, you know, the encouraging times. It wasn't just bad. There were times where guys were literally going to fight 2 days up the road, and they're in the loft area sharing tea. Hey, man, we got to fight, dude. I'm going to try to take you out. But, man, it's nothing personal, man. I appreciate you. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I'm an old school guy. Like, get away from me.
I would never do that, right?
Like, don't even look at me.
Don't talk to me. Don't look at me.
Until we fight, and then we can be cool.
Right.
These guys were like, look, man, I can compartmentalize that and, you know, talk to you. And these guys are eating breakfast together. I've seen two guys weigh in. I walk to the loft. One's eating breakfast here. The other one's eating breakfast there. And then they're going to fight in about 6 hours.
I think that's just sports today. It's just a totally different culture. Even, I mean, you're not that far removed from it, and it's much different. Even like guys in the NBA, you know, want to play together, want to hang out.
In the summer, I'm like, dude, you know you're going to be battling this guy.
You're going to war with him in
for
7
all
game
the marbles,
series.
you know, 6 months from now, and you're working out with him. Like, I can't fathom that. So I commend those young men. I say that to say I commend them. And they did a great job managing, you know, all of those different things.
So when you think about sports as a whole today, you mentioned your path and how you were focused on guys like Roy Jones and you know, Sly today. When you think about athletes today, it seems like they're taking more control of their narratives. How do you think things have kind of transformed the last couple of years?
I just think, you know, athletes are getting smarter. There's more, you know, research and just knowledge at their disposal, and they're learning from the mistakes of others. And not even necessarily the mistakes, but just, you know, they're courageous enough to say, look, I appreciate the way he did it, but, man, I see this a little bit different. And, you know, you see that in boxing. You see that in basketball, LeBron James. You know, Maverick Carter, you know, he put his best friend in a position of power. And of course, initially when you do it, oh, he's crazy. He's going to ruin his career. It's working out pretty good for him.
I'd say so.
So I think it's just, you know, guys are just, girls are getting smarter, and they're just having the courage to say, listen, man, I'm processing everything that's happened in the past, but I've done my research. I'm up to speed, and I'm going to take a leap of faith and kind of do it on my own.
So you're a Bay Area guy. Warriors are obviously looking pretty good these days.
Absolutely. We're looking very nice.
I mean, what's it been like to see the Warriors rise to the top of the NBA after decades of being one of the worst teams in the league?
Yeah, I supported them even during those times.
A true Oakland fan.
And I'm happy those days are over.
I'm sure you are.
And we you know, we got some people that aren't happy with this because, you know, when you're winning, man, and you're in the winner's circle, man, you're gonna have naysayers.
You dealt with it. You're good.
Yeah, oh yeah. So that element is not going anywhere. So like the only option is to like lose and not have that. Right. I would rather win and have that. So go ahead and say what you gotta say. I'm trying to get the W, and they're doing it. They're doing it with class. I love what Steve Kerr is doing, and man, I'm just, man, salute to all those guys, man. Nothing but respect.
How about the Raiders? John Gruden's back in town. Yeah, what do you think about them?
Chucky. Yeah. I mean, from what I'm hearing, I was going to try to get out to Napa and go to training camp. Haven't had an opportunity. But from what I'm hearing, man, the guys are buying in. And you hear guys say that a lot, but that's important for superstars and guys who are making millions of dollars. They have to buy in and believe what this coach is saying and believe that he can lead them to where they're trying to go, and that's playoffs and ultimately a championship. It sounds like that's what's happening. You know, my good friend Marshawn Lynch, he's coming up on his 12th year, and he seems happy. You know, and if he's happy, I know there's some good things going on in camp. So I think they're going to have a great year.
How long have you known Marshawn?
Man, for years. Probably like, I don't know, maybe like, we've known of each other for forever. But I probably said we started kind of really, you know, spending time maybe about 4 or 5 years ago.
And that's a guy that does it his own way, right?
He's like, Marshawn is quietly building an empire.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, he does so many different things, and he has so many different business ventures that people don't even know about. And he's heavy on giving back. He gives of his time, he gives of his talent, he gives of his treasure. He doesn't have a problem digging in his pocket and saying, here, let's do this event, I'll pay for it. He takes the time out of his crazy schedule to say, look, man, what's up? Let's talk. and you know his treasure, man. I mean his talent. Like he throws football camps. He does it all, man. And I'm proud of him. And he's a great example, man, for me.
And what are some of the things you've done in the community back home in San Fran?
Same thing, man. Like I try to just we don't have a foundation right now. Me and my wife pondered that. We just kind of try to go where there's a need. You know, whether it's just a donation, whether it's, you know, spending time at the Boys and Girls Club, you know, partnering with somebody like Marshawn at his camp, like wherever there's a need, we just try to fill the need. You know, I just threw my first amateur boxing tournament.
Nice.
You know, that was really, really important for me, but also exciting because, you know, during my career and having a big family, like it takes up so much time. And people always ask me like, man, why don't you? And I'm like, yeah, it's coming. Like, just give me some time. But it's amazing, like now in retirement, like how all these doors are opening up and all this opportunity is opening up. So we jumped at the opportunity to throw it. And again, I feel like showing up is like half the battle. You know, just letting the younger fighters know that, man, I'm physically here and I'm supporting you and I'm available if you want to talk and, you know, just to encourage them. So wherever there's a need, man, I try to fill it. And, you know, I'm real heavy on giving back, man, because that's what it's about. Like if I'm just taking it all in and just, you know, getting money and building my legacy, I don't know if that's a career well spent. You know, I have to take the time, man, to look to the left and the right and try to help out where I can.
Definitely. So it seems like things are pretty busy now that your career's over.
A little bit.
Obviously, Creed 2 is coming out
Thanksgiving
weekend. So how did the whole Creed thing happen initially, and what was the whole experience like for you?
Well, another Bay Area native in Ryan Coogler.
Incredibly talented
filmmaker. The hottest director in Hollywood, in my opinion. We had been hearing about each other. You know, we have a lot of mutual friends, and then we finally connected, and he was like, I got a role for you. I'm like, I don't act, though. He's like, yeah, but I have a specific role for you. And we, like, met at, like, Cheesecake Factory or something like that. And he, like, ran it down to me. And I was like, bro, this sounds like it's a big deal. He was like, it is. And I want you to be a part of it.
Wow.
And I signed up, man. And that guy is just, he's amazing, man. Like, he invited me and my wife to his wedding. He's on the dance floor after the ceremony. And we had to get back to the kids. And he stopped dancing with his bride and walked us to our car and said, call me when you get home.
Wow.
I'm like, bro, but that's who he is. You know, on the set of Creed 1, I would watch him. I'd be in the ring kind of, you know, doing my thing and trying to, you know, process my script and everything. And then I would see this young man manage a room full of middle-aged people. And, you know, then all of a sudden I would look to my left, and he's right there like, man, how you feel? You good? And I'm like, bro, I'm fine. Like, shouldn't you be doing
Got a lot going on here, right?
That's him. So it all started with Ryan, and then obviously Ryan and Stephen Capel, who's doing Creed 2, they both went to USC. They got a strong relationship, so he put me in contact with him, and I was able to be a part of the sequel.
And Michael B. Jordan's got some game.
And of course, I can't leave out Mike. I'm sorry about that. Mike's a good friend of mine, and he's very vocal and had a lot to do with it as well.
Awesome. So, Andre, when you think about the next few years going forward for you, a lot to look forward to, but when you think about boxing as a whole, how does boxing continue to take the next jump, whether it's through streaming services, shows like this? How does boxing not be the ugly red-headed stepchild in sports?
I don't know if we're ever going to shake that title. I don't know. Like we've kind of always been that, and I'm not necessarily trying to shake that. I think, you know, I would like us to be seen in a you know, a brighter light, so to speak, and kind of more mainstream. And I think we're heading in the right direction. You know, the thing about the sport of boxing is it's a very old sport, and we're kind of stuck in our ways. You know, we don't want a lot of innovation, but I'm watching some of the, you know, the older promoters. I'm watching, you know, some of the older managers who typically wouldn't be on board with certain things. I'm seeing them come around, and they're willing to say, hey, let me give this a shot. That's what's going to move the sport forward.
There you have it. That's Andre Ward, son of God. Andre, thanks so much for coming in.
Appreciate the time, brother.
All right, that'll do it for us. We'll see you next time here on The Sit Down.